We are fighting against this administration, against mass deportation, against ICE in our communities, and to bring Kilmer back home.
Sister holding up a sign behind me right now, impeach Trump again. Also, you can see there are several dozens of them behind me right now. This rally just started. We have a speaker with the University of Alabama College of Democrats at the microphone right now talking to all of these protesters. When he started talking, everyone else started holding up their protest signs. So a lot of them not happy that President Donald Trump will be here in Tuscaloosa today. Also, I did see former U.S. Senator Doug Jones. He was shaking a few hands just a moments ago. He's a part of this protest. Also, former U.S. Representative Beto O'Rourke. He will be speaking here as well. So again, there are a lot of people gathered here at Snowden Park ready to protest Donald Trump. We're going to be
Behind me, there is a large crowd of protesters here in the Anchorage Park Strip. That's one of several protests going on in Alaska on May 1st, also known as Mayday. Mayday, also known as International Workers' Day, and often marked with political demonstrations.
This event specifically on May Day, this is about celebrating workers and the working class, and really the theme of this event is the working class over the billionaire class.
Aubrey Weber with the advocacy organization 907 Initiative says they chose to invite food trucks and gather in a central location instead of a march because of the working class who would be coming from their jobs.
People got off their job at 5 o'clock. They're hungry. They want to drink a beer. We have a beer garden. This is a celebration. It is different than, I think, some of the marches that you've seen. And I think there's a place for all of those events.
Weber says Anchorage was one of 15 protests happening across Alaska. Since President Donald Trump's inauguration, Alaskans have rallied on multiple occasions in a movement calling for protests in all 50 states. Protest signs addressing a wide variety of issues and actions taken by the Trump administration. Alaskan protesters say they're fearful of how the anticipated impact of tariffs and federal funding cuts will impact Alaska's specific circumstances. Philip Walters is a part of the Anchorage Education Association. Looking to the future, he's worried about how federal funding cuts could hurt Alaska education and came to
hospitals, the janitors who clean our hotel rooms.
The rally starts off with fiery speeches at the state capitol. Thousands of people drawn here to take a stand against President Trump.
Not only terrorists, but with due process, all the people off the streets without due process, that's un-American. We feel like we're losing our country.
And I'm here as a mother, and on behalf of all the mothers with children imprisoned in Venezuela.
Then the march begins, 10 blocks to the federal courthouse downtown. People carrying signs that read, "Hands off my benefits," "Stop deportations and tariffs," and "Dump Trump," among others we can't show on TV.
I'm shocked at what's going on. We're losing our rights, and I feel we have a small window in order to stop this.
And the sentiment isn't only anti-Trump, it's anti-Elon Musk too, along with the GOP-led Congress.
You know, the stripping away of DEI, we've seen a war on immigrants, a war on Black America.
It's really just showing that we are against this government that doesn't support us.
But everyone here also came for their own personal reasons, like a blind woman worried about the world her disabled children may live in.
I want to leave them a future that is worth having.
And others worried about more practical things, like their suddenly smaller retirement accounts.
Well, a lot of people are losing money from their retirement funds. We are retired, and it's hurting a lot of people.
The march ended in front of the federal courthouse with dancing in the streets and spectators packing a parking garage.
Took to the streets in several local communities today for May Day demonstrations. This is video of one in Fort Smith. Demonstrations also happened in Fayetteville and Rogers. and also in cities across the country. The tradition coincides with International Workers' Day, dating back to the 1800s when people were protesting to reduce the workday down to 8 hours.
Scott, you said it, quite the crowd out here this morning. As you mentioned, that march just starting moments ago. It's impossible to tell how many people are out here, but they were expecting record-breaking attendance this morning. This line going back block after block, all of these folks starting down Figueroa, and it's hard to tell just how far back it goes. Again, like I said, expecting thousands of people out here this morning. Now, they've been out here for hours listening to a rally. Organizers were out here. I want you to take a listen.
Whose streets? Whose streets?
Thousands of workers taking to the streets of downtown Los Angeles today in honor of International Workers' Day, or May Day. The Los Angeles May Day Coalition is comprised of thousands of workers and over 85 labor unions. Today's demonstration of solidarity is expected to be one of the largest in the country, many of which are focused on U.S. President Donald Trump's policies. Attendees gathering together with signs, chanting and cheering. They're demanding accountability from elected officials and protection of workers and immigrants' rights. According to organizers, the coalition is also demanding living wages and safer workplaces.
Marching through the streets of downtown Denver is a microcosm of a movement seen throughout the country on Thursday.
May 1st is a national day that we feel protected. We all there. We all speaking for ourselves.
It's May Day, otherwise known as International Workers' Day.
Remember the fight that workers have struggled for to gain labor wins like the 8-hour workday and weekends?
This year felt different than years past for organizers of this protest.
Workers' rights are deeply under attack right now, and we're seeing that through workers' rights include DEI programs. Workers' rights include immigrants' rights. Workers' rights include public education and our federal employees having jobs.
I mean, we cannot continue living like this. 4 months has been a nightmare.
Javier Calzada has lived in Denver for more than 25 years and immigrated here from Mexico.
So I cannot go back, and a lot of the people cannot go back and live over there. We have to fight to be here.
I take this personal.
Teresa Molina lives in Commerce City and says she comes from a family of immigrants.
Witnessing all these immigrants getting deported, it's, you know, you want to speak up, you have to speak up.
I've been protesting since 1969, 70, Vietnam War, in college.
While Helen Berkman and Sandy Parker say they're taking this chance to protest what they believe are flawed federal policies.
I want to stand up for people who don't have a voice.
Everyone here for their own reasons. United by their common goal.
We're the only ones that are standing in between these billionaires and them being able to totally eviscerate our rights and fully push through their agenda. It has to be us standing up.
Crowds flocking to the capital city to send a message to state and federal leaders.
We're going to let the powers that be in the Capitol know that the workers are fed up.
An array of unions and representatives of working class people in Connecticut organizing on May Day, or International Workers' Day.
Working people are struggling. We can't afford our rent. We can't afford to buy a home. We can't afford health insurance, and retirement security is a dream to most people.
The call was on state leaders to, quote, be bold and loosen the fiscal guardrails, allowing more money to support communities around Connecticut.
I often hear people say, well, it's for a rainy day. It's flooding. It is flooding. From poor working class people to middle class people, it is pouring.
Also, to support plugging holes where federal funding has been cut.
We're asking for more resources because nationally they're cutting our resources. They're going after Medicaid. They're after Medicare. They're going after education.
Messages and signage at rallies this morning ranged from workers' protections and support for working families to immigration, democracy, and the president himself.
Yes.
Now, this event here put together by the Space Coast Progressive Alliance, they helped put it together. It's the third one like this in the past month here in Brevard County, each protesting similar issues from the economy to public education and immigration. Organizers say the Trump administration is trying to silence immigrant voices, so today's rally, they say, is to speak up for immigrants.
Undocumented immigrants in particular don't have a legal status from which to fight legally against the Trump administration. So we're out here calling attention to the things that Donald Trump has been doing to them.
I've been very successful with my family, my homes. That's what you do with immigrants. This country is made by immigrants.
We are under attack as working class families. That's full stop. There literally is nothing that we have seen like the times we're in. But we can learn lessons from what we've experienced. Workers have been under attack for decades. Working class families have been under attack for decades. Brown and black families have been under attack for decades. Our immigrant folks, our mass incarceration system has been attacking us for decades. So what does it look like right now when we have somebody in the White House ensuring that they can codify those attacks? What does it look like when we have somebody in the White House who not only hired his friends, but ensured that he's hired the same corporations and the same corporate thugs that have been attacking us for those decades?
One struggle, one fight, all workers unite. Working people rallied together against what they feel is a national crisis. Thursday's event, part of May Day or International Workers' Day. Multiple unions involved included nurses, hotel workers, and many others.
What has been the response of our legislators here in Hawaii? How have they worked to protect our migrant workers, our low-wage workers?
Even though we may look different, we may come from different places, we might not necessarily be from Hawaii, when it comes to the working people, it's all one fight.
We support our union. We support other unions. I represent a bunch of Lahaina Filipino immigrants who were directly affected by the Lahaina fire. People are really struggling, paying 3 times more rent than they've ever paid.
And goals include building up the coalition of workers in Hawaii. Others feel bills have not been passed, including ones to help worker rights and help worker families.
Idahoans joined the rest of the country in fighting for their rights.
There has to be enough people out here and everywhere across the country who will say this will not stand.
This May, hundreds came together to protest government changes affecting federal workers and civil rights.
I think that it's really important because they're being heavily impacted by this executive overreach and DOJ and all of the things that they're doing.
The Boise rally was part of a larger nationwide movement, fighting against President Trump's policies on immigration, federal workers, DEI, and much more.
Indiana and allied organizations joined outside the State House to stand with unions across the nation. A spokesman for the rally say that Amazon is one of the nation's most vocal anti-union corporations. This May Day, more than 1,000 anti-Trump protests across the United States are part of the 50-51 movement.
The lawn of Goodrell Middle School was packed with educators, union advocates, and community members as they demand better circumstances for Iowa's public education system and teachers' unions.
In this state,
Teachers have always led the way when it comes to collective bargaining and unionization.
Superintendent of Des Moines Public Schools, Dr. Ian Roberts, took to the podium to say he believes now more than ever the state is seeing a direct attack on public education and a thriving democracy.
Wichitans take part in a national protest on May Day. The Day of Action demonstrators are demanding the Trump administration prioritize health care and housing.
Hope to raise awareness and let people know that we are not alone. People who are upset about canceled government programs, loss of health care.
I can understand if you feel overwhelmed. I can understand if you want to just look away and hope it goes away, but you're here because you know we can't back down in this moment. And I never want to waste my words. My prayers always that my words add value. So the reason that I'm here and adding in this moment with all the speakers, I want to tell you, thank you for showing me that community still has power. Yes. The rallies and the organizing that I'm seeing in Kentucky, here in the city, across the country, lets me know you're not done and you haven't given up. And it gives me hope. But be very clear. Yeah, we're pissed off at that man in the White House. Yes, we are. No, we will not give in to fascism. No, we won't. No. But this is bigger than the person in the White House. Yes. Getting him and his cronies and those corrupt billionaires out of the way does not heal our country, our city, or our Commonwealth, because the status quo before them was already crushing us. Yes. So this isn't a declaration of going back to the time before that crazy man got in the White House. This is us saying that we need real change, and we will not back down in the fight for our freedom.
Laborers and various local organizations made their way down Canal Street. This year's theme was dignity and justice for all workers. Organizers say they're not only asking for better work policies, but they also want to end deportations and criminalization. The protest had ended at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office outside of City Hall.
Just turned the corner from their mile march. If you want to look over and see the massive size here, at least 3,000 people, we are told, have turned out for this march here, this May Day march and rally. Now, they began over at USM's Portland campus, many carrying signs criticizing President Trump, specifically the president's executive orders and proposed cuts. They are angry and very vocal, but otherwise, this is pretty peaceful. Protesters marching a mile, like I said, by the post office, the Portland Public High School, the library, all places targeted by President Trump.
And our message today is solidarity with all oppressed people, with everybody who works for a living, and tell Trump to get his hands off our social services.
Constitution is under attack. Bill of Rights is under attack. Basic human rights is under attack. And we won't stand it anymore. From this administration, they have to go.
A very large crowd of protesters, organizers telling me around 1,000 demonstrators here at McKeldin Plaza in Baltimore, many of them here for workers' rights, union rights, migrant rights, students, teachers, so much more. They say they need to stand up against what they call the billionaire takeover in the White House, telling me they need to take their freedom back.
We don't want unelected billionaires to be in charge of us.
That's the message that brought out over 1,000 people to McKeldin Plaza Thursday. The demonstration was held on International Workers' Day. Virginia Rodino, a member of the Labor Network with Sustainability, telling me why it was important to show up.
I think we're seeing unprecedented attacks against workers, but we're also seeing unprecedented coordination, recognizing that we need to stand together in order to fight the enormous attacks against us.
She says that enormous attack comes from the Trump administration and Doge. The protest consisted of 7 different marches coming together as one, with music, poetry,
We beauty sleep during ugly death. How are we not ashamed? The difference between America and Freddy Krueger, at least he knows the children's names.
and more. People were there supporting the teachers union, cultural workers, Palestine, migrant rights, and democracy as a whole. Along with their signs, each person carried the same message: to stop the billionaire takeover.
Students, retirees, and union workers gathered in Springfield advocating for their rights, marching from the post office to City Hall, making their mark on their community.
Celebrate workers, but also talk about how workers' rights are under attack across this country.
I feel like the only way that we're going to overcome the present crisis is through unity and solidarity.
The other day, an old torn up flag rolled onto my lawn, and I took a picture of it. I almost started crying because I realized that that is really the state that our democracy is in right now.
Many using the opportunity at the rally to voice their concerns surrounding President Trump's policies.
We also believe that when workers have good conditions and can push back against their bosses, there's less workers willing to join the military, to support the forever wars overseas.
All of us are concerned with what's happening to very good institutions like the national parks.
We're losing funding in our schools. I'm deeply concerned about the fact that we're losing Head Start.
Township. The protesters joined with others all over the world who are at odds with President Donald Trump and his policies.
People are going to suffer. We already see that these tariffs are causing us more when we go to the store. People are concerned that there's not even going to be stuff on the shelf. So obviously this is not going to help the American people. When he took office, our economy was much better, and now it's tanking. So why people think he's doing a great job is beyond me, but it's hurting a lot of people. People who rely on Medicaid are worried. Our veterans are worried. It's all across. So we could be out here every day over something he's doing.
Rowan is quick to point out all these people are out here for free, pushing back against the notion that they've been paid to resist Trump's agenda.
Nobody here is being paid. That's a big talking point. For some reason, they think we're being paid. If that were true, I'd be a millionaire by now.
Rowan.
Dances. Several people from various labor groups also spoke. Rally-goers used signs to criticize President Trump and Elon Musk for what they called their attacks on immigrants. Speakers talked about the day's significance and called on the crowd to fight back.
On May 1st, 2006, hundreds of thousands of immigrant workers poured into the streets across the U.S. to fight for immigrant rights. ¡Que vivan los inmigrantes!
We stand here in the true power. The true power is in each and every single one of you.
Another speaker talked about the White House proposal to dismantle the Department of Education. She's urging state leaders to provide more resources to Mississippi's teachers.
Must continue to rally and support our public schools. Remember, our public schools provide equal opportunities for all children, not the ones that are cherry-picked, all children. Public schools are great resources. They are equalizers. They offer a quality education regardless of the zip code. Let's think about our Madison counties, our Rankin counties, but then compare it to those communities and zip codes in the Mississippi Delta. Take a drive through our state. Not all schools are created equal, and that's why it's so important that we continue to invest our public dollars in our public schools.
The roots of May Day, or International Workers' Day, stretch back over a century. Labor unions recommended workers be honored every May 1st.
through this parade here. A little scary.
And I never thought that we'd ever see something like that.
They joined in Thursday's May Day protest that focused on a multitude of issues.
Social Security, Medicaid, these are really important things. What happens when we don't take care of people who are needing them?
Over 160 people started at City Hall and marched to Senator Steve Daines Billings' office on 3rd Avenue. Protesters expressed their frustrations over proposed cuts to Medicaid, America's largest form of health insurance. But for Mother Doree Cole,
Medicaid saves lives.
these proposed cuts have a personal impact.
The services of Medicaid are priceless.
Her son Taylor suffers from pudendal neuralgia, and Cole has become his full-time caretaker and uses the assistance of a caregiver. Medicaid makes that service possible.
May Day protests are about labor, I think specifically is what we were called out for. And just yesterday, UPS announced 22,000 job layoffs because of the tariffs that President Trump has unilaterally decided to call.
I'm out here for us, for my children, and for my grandchildren, and for the future of our country. We're being forgotten.
Chants demanding change on the Las Vegas Strip. Hundreds gathering for a rally Thursday, one of many across the country on May Day.
When you attack immigrant workers, you are attacking our union.
The Culinary Union and its members pushing back against the Trump administration's policies.
I've seen people get deported with no due process, and that's not correct.
With Culinary Union President Diana Valles also sharing efforts to help those here in Southern Nevada.
For years, we have fought to have protections for members who have permission to work in here, to be here in this country, and protection when those papers are not in place, so they can wait for their job. Their job is there for them.
Sorry.
I know.
Ready. I'm gonna apologize to my speakers right now because I just met a friend. His name is Alex. He's from Arizona, and he just said, "Sir, can you give me 1 minute up on the podium?" I say, "Yeah, hell yeah, come on." So Alex from Arizona, take it up, buddy.
They are getting nervous, New York. And I want to give you a perfect example of this right now. We've seen with our federal workers, them being laid off, cuts across the board. We've been seeing our VA workers and those who serve our veterans being cut off and laid off without dismissal. We've been seeing individuals calling for a ceasefire, getting locked up and suspended of their due rights. We've been seeing folks who process our Social Security, federal workers processing Social Security for so many different people. And what we saw right now, next, excuse me, sir, when we saw right now, next, is that they wanted to go after Medicaid, and they are going after Medicaid next. Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Next week, the Republican caucus was scheduled to Medicaid to seniors and vulnerable people across the country. But we've been rallying, folks. In fact, right now, as I speak here, Senator Sanders is at a 5,000-person rally in Philadelphia. And we are joined by brothers and sisters across the country. And one of the things that I've just learned coming up on this stage is we've been rallying in Idaho, 12,000 people in Idaho, 36,000 in Los Angeles, 34,000 in Denver, 23,000 in Tucson, 15,000 in Phoenix, 9,000 in Missoula, Montana, and today 6,000 here, right here in Foley Square in New York City. And as I was walking up to this stage, we found out that they have stopped and suspended next week's Medicaid cuts because they're getting too scared. They see you, New York. They see the gathering. But our fight is not over yet. Our fight is not over because they have only suspended it. They think if they slow this, they think if they can do this in the shadow of the night, that they can get away with it. So they have moved it to May 12th, another 2 weeks. But one thing that we want to make sure that we do is that we stay on them because we have an assignment right here at home. Nicole Malliotakis of Brooklyn wants to vote for these Medicaid cuts. Mike Lawler of Westchester County wants to vote for these Medicaid cuts. Congressman Lalota wants to vote for these Medicaid cuts right here in New York. So we know that our assignment now is that they get a strong message. They vote for this, they're gone next year. We're giving them the boot next year. So if they want to stay, this trash has got to go.
I think it's the people at the bottom that are going to be affected the most. You know, the people that have it. I think we need to concentrate more on the little people, the people that need it the most. And of course, I need my Social Security.
We saw groups at CCB Plaza in downtown Durham.
I just think it's atrocious what's going on.
Then later at Halifax Mall in Raleigh.
They want to run this country as if we are commodities to be bought and sold, and we're not. We're human beings.
With people there marching up the street to Bicentennial Plaza.
Lock him up! Lock him up!
So I don't know about you, but I've been to a few rallies lately. How about you? All right. So how many of you went to any rally on April 5th? All right. Yes, that is just awesome. So I heard that in Portland, there were about 25 to 30,000 people that showed up on April 5th just in Portland alone. Yeah, right. Portland shows up.
Crowd behind me right now. You're looking live overhead at the For Workers Not Billionaires rally on the north side of City Hall. A lot of people crowded onto the apron here, and you can see plenty more have spilled out onto the street that's been closed by Philadelphia police. Now, just about 10 minutes ago, we heard from Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Today, Sanders really laid into the Trump administration's policy on taxes, immigration, federal cuts, and a lot more. He pointed out the billionaires President Trump has put into his cabinet positions and surrounded himself with, including the world's wealthiest man, Elon Musk. Sanders says he came to today's event with a call to workers and to Pennsylvania lawmakers. Take a listen.
And I'm here in Pennsylvania to tell any member of the Pennsylvania delegation that if they vote for tax breaks for billionaires and cut Medicaid, nutrition, and education, we are going to throw them out of their jobs.
Watch out for each other. We're leading that way. We have one of our organizers. If you turn around, she's at the end of the This is what democracy looks like.
And from all corners of the Green Mountain State, demonstrators say they hope their calls are heard all the way to Washington.
May Day, also known as International Workers' Day, is held every May 1st to celebrate workers' rights.
It is so important because we have to show up. We have to come together as a community to let them know that we will not stand for this. This is not okay. We won't let it be okay. And we won't shut up until it's done. Our message here is people over profit. So we want to exemplify all of the ways that this administration is hurting people for profit.
The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects the right to protest, guaranteeing freedom of speech and the right to assemble. People in Kelloland are making their voices heard. Marlon Mullet attended several protests and says his main objective is speaking up for workers and seniors.
And we want to make sure that our benefits are protected, such as Medicare and Social Security. And if we don't have a voice, what they could do, could they take it away? I don't know. Hopefully they wouldn't. But I think we need to let those people know that we are concerned about our benefits.
Why do this?
I think that if we don't do it, it's basically telling them to go ahead and do what they want.
Like Mullet, Gaylord Hembrecht served in the military, and he's concerned about the DOGE cuts to the VA system.
I hate to see too many workers get let go. They're looking at letting possibly 80,000 workers go throughout the VA system, and we don't know how that's going to affect our health care.
Hembrecht says letting our elected officials know how we feel is important, too. Sandra Calise is also active in the recent protest movement. She is an advocate for women's rights, and she wants people to know that they can make a difference.
More people sort of interested in saying, I don't like this. I don't like what's happening right now. When we were out downtown Sioux Falls on April 5th, that was the most people I've seen in Sioux Falls or South Dakota, since forever.
Tonight, opposition to President Trump grows louder.
I'm scared to death of what the president is doing to this country. He's tearing it apart.
May Day protesters rallying across the world and nationwide across 1,000 cities. From New York to Chicago to North Texas.
What we fight for is liberation.
This protest in Fort Worth.
Save America,
remove the Trump administration.
With Robin Roy's first.
But I'm doing it to stand up for our democracy.
In some countries, it's a public holiday honoring labor, but here in the U.S., May Day protests taking on a whole new meaning, with activists saying much of their message is about fighting back against the president's policies.
You are worth fighting for.
Labor activists in Fort Worth speaking up for workers' rights and social justice causes.
For me, the deportations are what are just so cruel.
That sentiment repeated by protesters at this rally in Arlington.
You know what scares me the most is him grabbing people off the street and shipping them into a prison in a foreign country with no hearing.
We are union strong. We are union strong.
At this May Day rally in downtown Salt Lake City, people demonstrated in support of labor unions and workers' rights and against actions by the Trump administration.
I think that people on the street, on the ground, are feeling it, and there's more. People are upset. I mean, people are upset that their collective bargaining rights, they don't get a seat at the table.
Dan Martinez is a federal employee and union member.
Wages are not good right now. Like living conditions right now, people are working 2-3 jobs, and it's unions that have their back.
The May Day rally in Salt Lake City drew a couple hundred to Washington Square. In St. George, dozens marched at another May Day event, including some who say protests are not events they typically attend.
I decided I need to do this. And I was tired this morning and I didn't want to deal with it. But I thought, this is our priority at this moment.
The Utah rallies are smaller than other May Day events in other states, but they come at a time when labor unions here are pushing back on policies they say attack workers. A citizen referendum against a law the legislature passed banning public employee unions from collective bargaining appears to be headed for the ballot.
Communities all across our region coming together today with drums, clackers, and their voices.
The people, united, will never be divided.
Making sure they're heard loud and clear on a nationwide day of protest known as May Day.
It's not about left or right, Democrat or Republican. It's about what's right and wrong. And it's wrong what's happening to our rights for due process, our rights for free speech, our rights for assembly.
That's why Mary Droege with Castleton Indivisible says she's worked to bring together nearly 200 neighbors in southern Vermont, defending the rights they say are threatened by President Trump and his administration.
I'm 88 years old, and I never thought I would see our government doing what they're doing now, locking people up without due process. If the government can single out one group now, they'll start singling out other groups later on.
Democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Dozens of Lynchburg residents packed the corner at 9th and Jefferson Streets, holding their own May Day protest.
The history of May Day is in labor rights, and so it's really standing up for workers, and we see that as standing up for still the working community, not the billionaires.
Jennifer Staten organized the protest. She says they chose this corner to highlight the Doge cuts that are impacting places like Amazement Square. Staten says overreach at all levels of government has to stop.
We want to protect our Social Security, our rights, our women's rights, our workers' rights, that we want to protect our federal workers, our park rangers, our national museums.
When the government takes our rights and does things that we don't want, that we have fought against, we've told them we don't want it, it's a coup.
Sam Leopold says she's distraught over where the country is going.
What's happening is not America. This is not how we are. We are not a hateful nation. We are a loving nation, and we need to continue to love our neighbors.
We shouldn't have to be out on the street chanting, but they're at risk, and so we are.
And decked out as Rosie the Riveter, Donna St. Clair hopes all Americans are paying attention at every level.
We're in a critical constitutional crisis here, and we need all Americans to be aware and to be engaged.
happening today in cities across the country and here in Western Washington for International Workers' Day, also called May Day. You're right now looking at live pictures at Seattle's Cal Anderson Park, where a rally just is getting underway now. Now, the theme of the march is We Make America Work. Members of the Service Employees International Union, including healthcare, janitorial, food service, and other public sector workers, plan to march from Cal Anderson to downtown Seattle.
Hundreds of people in Milwaukee are taking as they rally for International Workers' Day.
Behind me, you can pick up on the energy, the signs, the chants, the drums.
They're all here for different causes and different reasons, supporting family members, friends, workers, teachers, students.
17-year-old Alondra Arce and her mother say one issue in particular brought them out Thursday.
I came from a family of immigrants, so it's like within me and my roots to come and support the cause.
This year's protest targeted President Trump's policies, including immigration. Activists cited the recent arrest of Judge Hannah Dugan.
We're seeing an assault on those rights with the arrest recently of Judge Dugan and how it's impacted immigrant workers as well.
What's that statement you're trying to make?
I think it's really important that we stand together and let folks know that they're not alone. There are pockets of people who support labor, and it's important that we are there for each other. And so that's what this is about. This is about solidarity and being together.
And I know that some labor activists, around Workers' Memorial Day, which happened earlier this week.
Right, it was the 28th.
After
it was a memorial service at the rotunda of the State House.
Mm-hmm. I understand there's been some criticism of Wyoming legislators, practical support for the safety of workers. Is this hoping to bring some awareness to that issue at all as well?
I think visibility is really important. What I understand is that the governor actually did reach out to Marcy and is willing to talk about how we can keep workers safer. And in a state like Wyoming, where we have lots of miners and lots of people driving from place to place and all kinds of heavy machinery, that worker safety is so important because we've got the highest per capita death rate in the United States, which is not a statistic to be proud of.
And broadly speaking, I mean, Wyoming's a very red state, but there are a lot of union members here. There are a lot of union jobs. Do you feel that labor is a partisan issue? And if so, do you feel that it should be?
Labor is not so much a partisan issue in my mind because it takes all of us to get anything done. And there are people who have all kinds of political stripes, but what we can agree on is we need decent wages, we need safe working conditions, and we need respect for the work that we do.